The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm Catherine Mousseau. Through this series, we're wanting to give you a look at what it's like to be an author. And perhaps you're someone out there who's aspiring to be an author and would like to know more. And we've been speaking with authors, but today we're going to go behind the scenes somewhat and speak with a publisher. So joining me on the set is Garry Cranford.
Hi.
Welcome, Garry.
Thank you very much.
And Garry, you're from Flanker Press, based in St. John's.
Yeah, right. We recently moved to Paradise, so we're probably the first publisher in the world to enter Paradise.
And being the challenging business that it is, it's nice to be in Paradise.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Garry, how about telling us, I mean, as a publisher in Newfoundland, it surely wasn't a common profession to go into. How did you get into this line of work?
It's interesting. Growing up in Central in Buckens, I thought maybe I'd become a newspaper publisher, but I went into the earth sciences. What I had done, I had written a community history about my outport routes, along with another gentleman, Ray Hillier, and that was published. Mm-hmm. And the publisher didn't go into a second printing, but it did very well. That was in 1984. Mm-hmm. So at some point, the government announced it was going to sell the famous schooner Normain Gladys, and I said, okay, I think I'll do some research. So I wrote a fairly lengthy manuscript, interviewed 30 people, offered it to 3 local publishers. 8 months later, no contract. One hadn't read it, one had read half of it. I said, if I can scrape a few dollars together, I'll self-publish. And that's how it started. And that first printing sold out. I learned a little bit about the business. And then a number of years later, the provincial government, who I was working for at the time, publishing part-time, decided to offer incentive packages to people who wanted to go, and that essentially gave me a 2-year salary or income bridge, and I figured in that time I could develop enough books to sustain me beyond that. So I hired my son, first salaried employee, and it kept growing from there. So our living room was our office, and our dining room was our warehouse.
Amazing how many businesses start that way.
Quite a few, especially in writing and publishing. It's not a course you can get. You can go to Simon Fraser out in BC and a few places, some colleges, and do courses in publishing, but most people learn within the companies they either start as a self-publisher or within a company they've worked for,
right,
and learn the business.
So Garry, now at this point, Flanker Press would have its own building and so many. How many employees are there?
Yeah, well, including family, there are 8 full-time employees. We sometimes, in busy seasons, fall, we'll have part-time, but then we also employ freelance graphic designers, editors, and so on. Especially all of our covers are done. Inside pages, generally we can lay them out. We have people on staff, my son, Jerry, and go from there. But yeah, we're very pleased with where we are now. Professional looking offices, well-designed warehouse, which I was forced to move into because the lease in my previous location doubled at the end of the lease.
Okay. So was it the right time to move to Paradise?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a forced decision, but a good one in the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, Garry, you have quite a few books out. I mean, we do see them everywhere these days. How many books a year would a publisher like you publish?
Well, we have 20 on the schedule for this year, and that's typical. 19, 20. I'd like to be able to make a living doing just 10, but we have to do more volume and spread the risks, because some books do well, others we thought would do well don't do so well, and so it's a balancing act, right from choosing the manuscript right on through. You're just going on some research and somewhat your own gut.
Your gut feeling. And after a while,
instinct.
I would say that gut feeling would start to be pretty good.
Yeah.
So now we're saying if you put out about 20 books a year, generally we hear that there are many more proposals that come into a publisher than that. What happens on that side?
Yeah, we quite often the rejection. Well, we get at least 200 submissions a year. Quite often, the rejections are made because authors haven't really researched our company and the types of books we've done. We don't do self-motivational. We don't do religious books. We don't do poetry. We get about 50 children's manuscripts a year. I publish 2, maybe 3, and usually one of those 2 or 3 are from one of our established authors. So out of the 200, if we publish 20, 180 go back. Some I'll see picked up by some other publisher. But we know within that 180 that there are some that are quite good, but we just can't do them all.
And I think that's the challenge to writers, is to actually make that move from the book on their computer to actually finding a fit with a publisher. And it's a considerable task when you're attempting to do it.
Yeah. Well, with the internet now, most professional publishers will have their submissions guidelines there. And then also, searching through a website, you can see the types of genres. So with us, it's history, biography, autobiography, a couple of children's books, and historical novels set in our culture, either characters or geographically. Once you start moving outside that, well, your chances of getting picked up become fewer. So that's why all of our books are grounded in our place.
And I think that is part of the research for writers to do in looking at publishers, to actually dig into their website and get a feel whether or not it's going to be a good fit.
Yeah, if it says provide a synopsis, 1 page, and 3 sample chapters, don't send a 400-page manuscript.
Absolutely.
If you do, make sure to include lots of postage if you want it returned.
Sounds like good advice. Now, Garry, how has the industry changed? I definitely want to ask you that, because you have been there for the long haul, and you have had to have seen changes over the years.
Well, I guess one of the biggest changes on the back end that a lot of people don't see is the technology. We used to go from film, page paste up at the printer, to film, then the plate. Now with software, we send a digital file to a printer anywhere in the world. They download it, and we can proof it long distance over the internet, and sign off on it, and go from there. That's been a big change. We've seen Amazon grow, become established and grow, and that's helped us reach people that normally we would not have. Everything online, with chapters online. 20 years ago, it was very poor.
That's
Right now, I can go to any Kohl's, Chapters, or Indigo store in Canada, look for a particular title, and it will tell me how many are in stock, and if not, how long it will take to get one.
And you can pre-order. I think it definitely changed the industry. I mean, when you start, not only from the actual publishing process, but also the accessibility. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
If we think when digital publishing first came out, and so many people, well, I'm not going to read a book like that. I'm not going to read a book like that. But if you travel a lot, like I do, like Kindle is my best friend, because I can take all my books on the road. At one time, I'd be putting 3 or 4 books in my suitcase and taking them with me. And now it's just on your phone or your, whatever device you. It's amazing how it has increased the reach.
Yeah, and that's that one decision we had to make back. We made about 7 years ago. Is, are we going to buy into this digital marketplace?
Right.
So we jumped in, and I think it's fair to say we have more digital books available around the world than any other publisher in the province, by double. So every time we release a paper book now, the digital book is released at the same time. And we've developed to the point where we now design the digital formats, the EPUB and the Kindle formats in-house. So I have someone taking care of that, making sure they're flowing properly. Well, he'll design it and set it up with Apple, Kobo, Kindle.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So it was a good decision you made.
In the long term, it will take a while for us to recover our investment. Another big investment is the online presence. For years, our website wasn't compatible with handheld devices or tablets.
Okay.
So we started from scratch, hired a firm, $20,000 later. Now you can read all of our books on the smallest phone you could possibly
So that's
buy.
quite a process, is it,
Yeah.
to go through that? I'm thinking in terms of digital, but you have to think in terms of what device, and so many of them.
Yeah, portability. Devices that are portable, not just the iPads, which are easy enough to read, but a lot of people are searching on handheld device, and text flows differently on a small screen than a large one. Bit of advice: when you're traveling with your Kindle, don't drop it.
Don't drop it.
Don't drop your library.
I haven't yet, but I always have the backup. I got my Kindle on my smartphone.
It's funny. A local publisher
Yeah.
had one for one day, dropped it after he had downloaded all this
Well,
free stuff. But
that's
he was out his initial purchase of the
actual
hardware.
device.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, that can happen, but so far so good. I'm going to knock on wood. Don't bring that up again.
Yeah. When I travel,
Yeah,
I prefer the paper book.
you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And fortunately, the sales proportionate to digital books hasn't dropped in the last 3 years. Like the sales revenue for digital books leveled off in 2014. And we're doing surveys with BookNet. We subscribe to BookNet, and they've done surveys, and they're finding teenagers 75, young adult readers, 75% still prefer this.
Do they?
Yeah.
And that was the question I wanted to ask you. I mean, will the book ever become obsolete? Because I wondered if it was an age thing, because I hear some of, people I know, and I say, oh, did you see this? It's digital. Now I have to have the book.
Yeah.
I have to have the book.
We'll always have paper books. We're collectors. And every now and then I'll hear of someone who will buy both simultaneously. They'll have the paper book for when they're home relaxing, and they can continue at any point in the book when they're traveling using their digital device. So, and some, we haven't gotten into this yet, but some retailers are bundling the paper book with the digital book for an extra $1 or $2.
Which actually, when you think about it, is a darn good idea.
Yeah.
Because it serves both, needs. Because, like I say, at times you do like that feel of that book in your hand.
Yeah.
If you're making notations or you want to highlight something, I know you can do it on your digital, but it seems easier in a book.
Also, surveys show that when people read from paper books, they retain more information,
now that's
which is
something
interesting.
I did not know.
Right, we live in the digital age, and we want to read little bits and pieces at a time. And I don't have. We have a Kobo at work, but that's only to see how our books are looking before they're uploaded. But personally, I don't use it. When I travel, I'll take. I'll buy a pack of books. Oh yeah.
And you still see a lot of that.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
So you're saying to us that, the actual hard book is not going to go away anytime soon.
No. It leveled off in 2014, and I think last year the sales worldwide of paper books, softcover and hardcover, actually increased.
Interesting, because there was a period there where we were seeing some bookstores start to disappear, particularly the independent bookstores. They were struggling.
The biggest problem there, the common denominator seems to be, not in all cases, but where they're located. Downtown, and rents are going up and up and up because the properties can be sold for condos or bigger properties. And that's really what's hurt a lot of bookstores. Leasing, insurance, that fixed cost of doing business.
Yeah, and truly when you think as well, given where we live, if people have to go downtown and find parking at certain times of the year, you might just go to the mall or go to the big bookstores. And it has had to have been challenging to the independent booksellers.
Yes, aside from, as you say, the malls and the big box stores, there's that competition, but then on the other end, you're getting squeezed by your landlord.
Yeah,
right.
So the combination of everything.
Yeah.
I think it's taken a tremendous amount of ingenuity with some bookstores to continue. I notice a lot of your books are, in places such as Irving's, in places where maybe tourists might go, and you've been a little bit inventive in your marketing.
We've been very proactive that way. The display racks you see, I had them I custom designed them and had them built so that they took up very little space, yet all of the books could be well displayed. And wherever, and Irving has been wonderful to deal with, I must say. Couche-tard now. We send them all the digital information on the books, barcoding, and so you can go to Goobies, take one of our books to the cashier, and it'll scan at the price it's supposed to.
There you go.
And so yeah, we've been very proactive. My wife and I, Margot, we have this warehouse on wheels. I can walk up and down the middle aisle, and I've got stacks of books on either side, and give that personal service. When I leave here, I'm going to go to a potential new account.
There you go. So it is a lot of on the role of the publisher. You're still doing promotion of the books. This is what I wanted to talk a little bit about. You know, when somebody goes to a publisher, they're accepted as an author. You know, what are your expectations of the author?
Well, we want them to be outgoing, not be scared of doing a radio interview or a television interview, or be interviewed by newspaper media, that type of thing. Also, if they're at a very minimum. We just have a situation with a new book. An author became very, very ill while his book was being printed. But in the last week, he's recovering. But in the last week, he's been very, very active on Facebook, posting and sharing his book on Facebook. And what we do, we've been developing Facebook pages or profiles, whatever they are, for our authors and coaching them, if they don't have a Facebook account, coaching them how to maintain it and update it and that sort of thing.
So the more savvy an author can be on social media coming in, all the better.
All the better, and it's not mandatory, but it's good.
But it helps. Well, we're trying to give
absolutely.
tips to authors that, you know, how to prepare, because it's more than writing the book these days. It definitely is more. But just hold that thought for a minute, because we're going to go to feedback. We'd like to hear from you. Are you enjoying this series? Do you have ideas for us? Here's how you can reach us.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Now, Garry, when we left there a few minutes ago, we were talking about things authors can do. I call it the prep for success. We mentioned social media. What other kinds of things might they be able to bring to the table that would be beneficial to the marketing of their book? And
well, being outgoing and being able to travel and interact well with the public, because one of the things we all do is book signings. We do hundreds of book signings and get our authors out there. We want them to be able to perform, do readings at local libraries, at book launches, so they'd be expected to get involved in that. But even way, way, way back, in terms of getting prepared, make sure the manuscript fits the publisher.
that's the number one thing.
Number one thing.
Make sure the manuscript fits the publisher, and then, you know, I suppose so things like being involved with Toastmasters, because sometimes writers can be more introverted people. They're not always the outgoing person. And I think some of our more successful ones always do manage to have that combination.
Yeah, I'm learning. Very early in my publishing career, I had an author bring me this incredible manuscript, and we published it, and it got rave reviews. And when we approached him to do, when we had set up interviews, he said, "I'm not doing any interviews. It's all in the book. I've said it all."
And that was it.
And the book bombed.
So hear that out there, authors or aspiring authors. You want to be working your social media. And,
be yourself.
Be
yourself
and develop, even developing your own email list and contact list in advance that could be used as part of the marketing would be beneficial.
A very good tip. I'm past president of the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador, and I would advise writers to join. And sometimes they put off seminars, professional development seminars for writers on public speaking, how to present yourself, and practice with an actor or actress who will give you feedback on improving your delivery.
Good tip. So the Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador their office is located in St. John's. You can go on their website, in fact, and you can just download your application and scan it and send it in. Very good point. And also, I find too, being engaged with certain writing organizations that might be similar to the genre that you write in, where you can share and network with other authors, is also helpful.
Yeah, that's right. Author groups, you can share ideas. Vicki Barber, very restricted genre, not restricted genre, very popular genre.
That's right.
But she has a writing group, and they bounce, they read what they're working on, get feedback and what works, and they can take brutal criticism very well. They're very good.
Well, it's feedback, and I mean, that's all part of it, and you have to accept that feedback. That group in particular is for romance, and it's Romancing the Rock, a private closed group, and I know that because I'm a member of it, but that is that kind of an environment, and it gives you a chance to open up and get your work out there and get some feedback on it from people who have a few ideas about what it takes.
Yeah, and Victoria in particular has been very eager to share what she's learned, because she started publishing, self-publishing, but uniquely just with digital books. That's all she produced, and she's taught us a few things because she was at it for years.
Yes, and I did really want to delve into digital publishing a bit, but we're pretty much I'm going to have you come back.
I'd love to come back.
Yeah, and the self-publishing actually is what I really wanted to talk to you about as well, how that's juxtaposed to the actual publishing that you do. But I mean, we've covered a lot of helpful things. I certainly want to thank you very much, and I don't know if you have a final tip, or am I putting you on the spot?
No, thanks for having me here. I grew up in Central when we had Grand Falls and we had Windsor.
Oh, there you go.
And now we have one.
Well, since you're a native son, we'll be especially nice to you, and we're going to have to do more with you, Garry.
Well, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Bye now.